Hello everyone. In this movie, we're going to try to clarify some of the concepts that we have been playing with over the last few classes. Namely, we're going to be talking about properties, basic properties of movie clips. Now, we've tried and we've played with some of these during the exercises in class, but there seems to be a bit of confusion between what can be done via keyframes and what can be done dynamically. So, with that in mind, let's talk about what the basic properties are. Basic properties include position changes, rotation, scale, and transparency changes, or alpha values. Now, these can be controlled, like I said earlier. They can be controlled either dynamically through code, or they can be controlled via keyframes. In this movie, we're going to create two separate types of movies. One where we control all of these via keyframes, and another one where we do it via code. So let's jump into it. Let me switch my software to Adobe Animate in this case, and you'll see that the layout is very similar to the one that we're working with in Flash in our class. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new action script movie, and I am going to basically create a rectangle on the screen. Let me change my settings for my rectangle to a nicer color and give this full opacity. So as you see, I can change my settings for whatever I'm going to create before I create it. I chose a fill color, no stroke, and I can change from within that swatch for the fill color. I can change my alpha value for whatever the fill color I'm applying. So I can increase it or decrease it from 0 to 100%. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing we've done in class. I am going to create a rectangle, and then I'm going to switch my tool to the arrow tool so that I can select it. With that rectangle selected, I am going to make a movie clip of it. I am going to turn it into a symbol. So I can go modify, convert to symbol, or the shortcut F8. Now, here I can rename it if I so desire. If I'm going to use it dynamically, I definitely need to rename it. In this case, I gave it the name box with a capital B. And I then get to choose where, in which one of these areas I want that registration point to be. Remember, the registration point is the X and Y reference for anything that you do to this specific movie clip. So if I'm moving it and I am gonna check to its X position, it is checking where that registration point is. As I said before, the default position is on the upper left hand corner, but you can choose anywhere, and as a matter of fact, you can change this at any time after you create a movie clip. For now, I am going to choose the upper left hand corner because that's what we've been doing in class, and I am not going to share it for action script. Therefore, I am not going into the advanced tab just yet. So I'll click OK, and now I have a movie clip on my stage, and at the same time I have it in the library. Fine. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to change different properties in this particular movie clip by using keyframes. As you all know, once I have a movie clip set up in a layer, I need to tag that layer to be to receive motion tweening so that I can go ahead and create extra keyframes, therefore creating the different changes in the properties. To do that, I will right-click that first keyframe, and from the flyout menu, I am going to choose the top option, which is Create Motion Tween. With that set, the amount of frames that is created for me, it equals the FPS of my movie, as you can see on this end. So if my FPS is 24 FPS in the movie, when I right-click and I say Create Motion Tween, it will create 24 frames of animation, or 1 second of animation. Now with that said, all I need to do to create an extra keyframe on this item, on this movie clip, is make sure that my time marker, this red box with the line, is at the frame at which I want to create that new keyframe. Let's say, for example, I want to create a keyframe at the end of that motion tween, then I'll just place it there. I can time scrub this to any frame I wish, as we've done in class. So I'll place it at the end, and then if I move it, you will notice that I automatically created a position keyframe. You will also notice that there's a new keyframe at the end of my motion tween. Now if I were to move this to, let's say, the 12 frame mark, and I were to move this elsewhere, you will notice that I have created a new keyframe. So anytime I change one of those properties, it will automatically create a keyframe. Now that I've created these keyframes, perhaps at this point I would like to create a rotation value for this particular keyframe. So if I were to select that keyframe, you'll notice that in my properties now I have the ability to increase or decrease the amount of rotation that I have. So say for example, if I were to rotate once, I'll simply select that to highlight it, press 1 on my keyboard and hit return or enter on the PC. And this particular keyframe will now have a value of 1 rotation. So if I scrub my video, you will notice that the box rotates once. Okay. Now, let's say for example at this point I would like to change my opacity. For that, I don't select the keyframe, I actually select the actual movie clip. So if I click on the movie clip, I can go into its style drop down and choose alpha. And there I can change the opacity value of the movie clip. So you'll notice that when I scrub my video, my alpha changes from the first to the second keyframe to 0. Now if I want that to reappear again, then I'll move my time marker to the end, select the movie clip on the stage and increase my alpha, so that now I have the movie disappearing on the middle keyframe and reappearing at the end. So far we've changed 3 different properties of this particular movie clip: position, rotation, and alpha. That leaves us with scale. Now let's say I want to go to this keyframe in the middle and I want to change its scaling value. For scaling, I also need to select the movie clip, not the keyframe. If I select the keyframe, you'll notice that the only property that I have access to is the rotation value. If I want to change the scaling value of the clip, I need to go to the clip of the movie clip. I need to go to the movie clip itself, select it, and then I get back to my properties window where I can see position changes and width and height, which are my scaling changes. So I can increase my scaling value, and you'll notice that there is a link to lock both width and height. I can turn that off and I can scale the width only or the height only, depending on what I'm looking for. So you have options as to how you want things to be transformed as you are changing, whether you want them to be one relative to the other or if you want them to be independent. So if I scrub my movie, you'll notice that it increases in size and it retains its size all the way to the end. If I want to bring it down, then I'll just go ahead and change the value of that particular keyframe at the end, and you'll notice that it takes as soon as I make those changes. Very well. So if I test this movie, if I were to test this movie, you'll notice that my movie clip is doing the exact same loop, and while that is fine, the only problem I have with this is that I am basically stuck or married to this specific timeline. I have no way of changing that in any other way. It is what the keyframes are giving me. That's the only control I have over this. So it would be a preset, predetermined change, and I have no way of going dynamically and changing it because it has already been marked by these keyframes. If I truly want to have control of my animations, if I truly want to have access and manipulate the way my movie clips react, then I need to rely on code, and that's what we're going to be doing in the next movie.